So for this assignment, you're going to be collecting assets for your poster. Assets are just basically the images and um, the typeface that you're going to use. You'll also, for the next assignment, acquire a color palette and add that. But for right now, I'm just going to show you a few things. I have taken some photos and I've done some manipulations. I'm going to choose the Lincoln Children's Zoo 50th anniversary called the Zoobilee, and I have some pictures from the zoo that I took. So I'll show you what I got. And by the way, I'm doing this in Photoshop. You can do it in Photoshop, but you can also do it in Pixlr, and the process more or less is exactly the same. First image I have is this baby alligator, and I thought this might be useful. And so what I did was I vectorized him. You can do that in Illustrator using Live Trace, or just watch the vectorizing video in this folder. What I did also was cut him out afterwards, and I left some of the rocks in there. And I thought this could be useful, although one thing that's missing is his tail. I'd have to sort of manufacture a tail. Otherwise, I'm sort of tied to sort of pushing him to the corner. But anyway, I thought I'd include him. I would have taken a better picture had I thought it through a little bit more. But that's why we have a bunch of assets. The next picture I took was of this child's hand touching the frog held by one of the zoo people in the hive. And what I like about that really is that it kind of speaks to the core mission of the children's zoo, which is to have first-hand interactions between children and animals. And I thought that had a good message. I cut out the image, but instead of having sort of the corners, you can see in the original I would have had hand had an edge, had a corner, edge, edge, is I added some material here to these hands. And I did that using the clone stamp tool. So it just gave me a little more versatility. So now these hands can sort of float in the middle of my poster without really any problems. I'm not tied to the edges. Another picture I took here, I just did a little bit of levels adjustment. And that's, you can go back to Unit 1 and see how to do that. And I just had my son looking at an iguana. I thought another really good picture. But really what it came down to, I think zoo, this image, the iconic ZOO letters by the camels right there on Capitol Parkway, are really what speaks to the Zoobilee, the whole event. That I'm not sure that I'll use the animal poster pictures, but I may, so I'm going to have them in there. So I wanted to focus on these letters, these sort of architectural block letters. And for my font, because you're going to include a font in your asset collection, is I chose a font here that is similar. It's easy to read, but it's still a little bit difficult, so I put a black shape behind it so it will show up. I think what the last thing I'll do, and you can do this in Pixlr or in Photoshop, is I'm going to rasterize this type. You can right click it in the layers palette in Photoshop, or you can go under the type tab in Pixlr and rasterize the type. And why I'm doing that is I'm going to manipulate this lettering more so it looks very similar to the Children's Zoo lettering. I'll just show you quickly how I would do that. In Photoshop, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I drop out a little area here, and I can just, using the pen tool, and fill in and block out the type and start to manipulate it a little bit so it looks more squared off like the original. I might even do a little bit of work to the inside here. I'm going to manipulate this exactly the same way that I did in Pixlr. So for you, if you're going to be in Pixlr, you can choose a rectangular or polygonal lasso. You can come over and do a little bit of manipulation. Then use the paintbrush. Let's see, let's do this on a new layer. And you can start to fill in and manipulate this font a little bit. You can see it needs a bunch of work, but I can block it out so it looks a little bit more like the original. So that's just one very simple, quick way to manipulate font. There's lots of other ways to do it too. But I want to see that you're just experimenting with this assignment. You're playing around a little bit, and it certainly doesn't need to be finished off. This is just a place for you to generate some ideas, aggregate your ideas, and show me what you're thinking about.